Great. Thanks, everyone, for being here tonight. Nice to see you all. So I'm Hally. I'm the director of the Coalition for the Poudre River Watershed. CPRW has been around since 2013. We started after the 2012 High Park and Hewlett Gulch wildfires that burned over 90,000 acres in the watershed. And since then, we expanded our working area probably about 5 or 6 years ago, but we work from headwaters in Rocky Mountain National Park all the way to the confluence with the South Platte River. So our mission is to improve and maintain the ecological health of the Poudre River watershed through community collaboration. Also just wanted to briefly highlight our programs, and they're really similar to the Big Thompson's programs as well. But everything that we do is really guided by various planning efforts that we've done. So we have a resiliency plan on the upper watershed. So we kind of think of the upper watershed as everything the canyon mouth up, and then the lower watershed canyon mouth down through Fort Collins, Windsor, and Greeley. So all of our work is guided by these collaborative efforts that went into these different plans. And watershed resilience is really the baseline of everything that we do. So with our forestry program, our rivers program, education and outreach, science and monitoring, we're focused on watershed resiliency. So Laura already showed this image, but just a reminder, this is what I'm going to be talking to you all about tonight, is really our post-fire efforts across both watersheds, because both the Big Thompson and Poudre burned in the Cameron Peak fire. But again, just the scale and extent of fire that our county has seen in the last decade is really unprecedented. So after the Cameron Peak fire, a variety of different groups came together. In fact, it was over 40 people or entities came together to start planning for our post-fire restoration needs, because we knew that they were going to be extensive and could last up to a decade. In fact, after the High Park fire, we were working on projects through 2018. So one of the things that we did first was we came up with this prioritization plan. Because we have limited resources and there's a lot of impact. And so we really tried to focus our efforts in these higher priority watersheds. So what we did is, with a bunch of scientists from the Forest Service and also the Colorado Forest Restoration Institute, among others, we looked at a variety of different factors, including debris flow risk, the amount of post-fire sediment that we anticipated would be entered into the system, and also soil burn severity, because high and medium soil burn severity really impacts what we see in the river. And so we came up with this prioritization plan, which has really guided all of our work across the entire burn area, both the Poudre and the Big Thompson. So the Cameron Peak Fire Reforestation Program is really threefold. So it started with aerial mulching, and then into point mitigation, and also reforestation, which Laura mentioned. And so the aerial mulching program was really what we first focused on. And the idea behind aerial mulching is just trying to get something on the hill slope before we start experiencing those monsoonal rains that come in June and July, and sometimes through August and September even. And this is really some of the science that has come out over the last decade has shown that aerial mulching can reduce the amount of erosion and sediment inputs into our water supply, which was one of the main reasons why we focused so heavily on this aerial mulching to begin with. So we did aerial mulching in 2021, so a year after the fire, and then again in 2022. And the science shows that it's really the most impactful when it's done immediately after a fire. And so this year we did not, we shifted our focus from aerial mulching. But in total, we mulched over 11,000 acres, and that's across both the Poudre and Big Thompson watersheds. Most of the mulching was done on U.S. Forest Service land, but there was also some mulching on state and private land. And this was a joint effort between the cities of Greeley and Fort Collins, the Big Thompson watershed, City of Loveland, and CPRW. Also the Forest Service was a key player as well. And so we, just as it sounds, you drop wood mulch out of a helicopter on these high priority areas. And that were identified using this prioritization plan. So then we started to shift our focus into point mitigation work, and this is kind of exactly what it sounds like. So it's more discrete location. So we find areas in different streams or areas where we want to protect infrastructure, and it's trying to do something in a smaller area. So this also includes a lot of the EWP work. So that's the emergency watershed protection work that was done across both the Poudre and Big Thompson watersheds, and that was led by Larimer County and the city of Greeley. So that initial effort, those EWP funds are used to protect life and property. So that's what's done, really, what first is done. And that's a program through the Natural Resource Conservation Service. And then now CPRW and the Big Thompson and others like the city of Greeley are going into some different types of point mitigation work where we're really focused on work in streams where we want to trap sediment and keep sediment out of the water supply. So this is one of CPRW's really exciting projects that was completed last year. So this is a new buzzword that you might start hearing more and more of. It's called low-tech process-based restoration. And the idea is we're trying to work within this stream system and work with the processes that already exist and kind of enhance them so that it'll be more functional into the future. So this is an aerial view of the upper part of Elkhorn Creek, which is a direct tributary to the Poudre River. And this meadow right here was identified. Was in one of our priority areas, but we were initially told about it because actually Colorado Parks and Wildlife have a diversion structure just upstream here, and they were having major sediment issues. So they wanted to see if there was anything that we could do. And unfortunately, there wasn't really anything that made sense to do in the stream up here. But then we found this beautiful old relic beaver meadow, which provided the perfect opportunity to implement some low-tech process-based restoration work. So trying to enhance this beaver meadow. We estimate that the beaver probably abandoned this area probably about 10 years ago. And so you can see there's these old beaver berms. And so what we're trying to do is we installed these, here's the old beaver berms. They're called post-assisted log structures, and so process-based restoration is done relatively cheaply. It's done mostly by hand. So hand crews installed these structures, post-assisted log structures that allow the water to pass through, but it does capture sediment, and over time will raise the water table and also bring vegetation back into this abandoned beaver meadow. In the ideal scenario, beaver would come back and maintain these structures for us, and we'll see if that will happen or not. But what I really wanted to highlight is this is just an aerial view from the structure this year. So it was implemented in 2022, fall 2022, so it's seen just 1 year of runoff. You can see in this one structure, there's tons of sediment that are behind the structure. So it's functioning just as we had intended. And instead of this sediment going downstream and into our water supply, it's instead in this meadow. And here is a photo of the meadow. This was actually this spring, so 2023 spring. But you can just see how it's able to slow the flow of water. The water's still making its way down. It's not trapping any water, but it is capturing sediment. So we're actually working with some researchers from Colorado State University who are doing a bunch of different studies on this project site and others across the burn area where we're working. But I have some really preliminary results that just came out. So they went into the stream channel, so they're not even looking at, I'm gonna go back. So they're just, right now, they have just estimated the sediment that's in the stream, not in the outside meadow area where water also went and sediment was trapped. So they'll be doing some other studies later. But what they found is just the sediment volume in the stream channel is it's a little over 2,000 cubic feet. And then I have some fun numbers of what that looks like. It's about 85 hot tubs worth of sediment or 1,000 kegs of beer of sediment. And so that's really exciting. This project is functioning just as we had intended. And this is just a really nice showcase project and highlights the work that CPRW and Big Thompson are trying to do with this low-tech process-based restoration work. I also just wanted to highlight, since we're on, I mentioned the CSU research study, the amount of research that's happening associated with the burn area and the different projects that we've done, including the aerial mulching work, and the process-based restoration work, the plant mitigation work. We're working with researchers from the Forest Service, from CSU, and others to really document lessons learned and figure out how effective our projects are, and so we can adaptively manage those if we need to, and when we have another fire, we'll be able to learn from everything that we've done so far. And then launching into our reforestation work, and so this is actually relatively new for us. After the Hyde Park fire, there wasn't as much data out about reforestation really being needed or successful, because you have to kind of have everything in line for this work to be successful. But really over the last decade, we're finding that ponderosa pine in particular are not coming back in these severely burned areas. So across the Hyde Park fire burn area and even Hayman fire from 2002. And so we started working with the Nature Conservancy, who has a big reforestation program, and we formed our own reforestation, Cameron Peak Fire Reforestation Group, which includes CPRW, the Big Thompson, Trees, Water People, the Conservation Corps, and Nature Conservancy. I think I got everyone. I should have put their logos up here. But so we're planting native ponderosa pine. We're using ponderosa pine from seeds that were collected from either the Poudre or Big Thompson, so they're local seeds, which helps to ensure their success. And we're planting them using these best planting practices that the Nature Conservancy has developed, also using a climate model. So we're planting these trees at higher elevations than they would normally be found, given future climate predictions. So at this point, we're about to wrap up our 2023 season, but across both the Poudre and Big Thompson, we've planted over 15,000 ponderosa pines and over 500 acres. And so it's a slow process, but it's really rewarding. And we're hoping that we'll be able to expand on these efforts and plant on Forest Service land in the future. At this point, we've only planted on private land. And then we're also working to actually collect pine cones as well, because we're running into a seed shortage. So there is a seed shortage across the West. The reforestation need across the West is very dramatic. It's millions and millions of acres that we need to reforest from all these massive fires that we've seen, but we don't have seeds. So we used to have a really large reforestation program. The Forest Service did in the 30s through basically I think the 70s or 80s, and then we just kind of stopped replanting trees. But now when we have climate change, et cetera, and these larger fires, it's really highlighting the need. And we're also, most of the seedlings that we've planted over the last 2 years have been from seeds that were collected in the 60s. And so as of next year, we'll be completely out of seeds, not just in the Poudre and Big Thompson, but across the West. And so CPRW and Big Thompson are trying to help with that by collecting ponderosa pine cones as well. So I finally just wanted to, these numbers need to be updated, but just wanted to end with the impact to date across both organizations and the municipalities that have helped, and the Forest Service and all the other partners. So over 40 partner organizations have been involved. This number has definitely increased after this year. Over 11,000 acres of aerial mulching, and then the fundraising efforts, over $25 million of federal funds and more have just come in actually this year to both to Greeley and to CPRW. Over $11 million of state funds, primarily from the Colorado Water Conservation Board, and then over $7 million of local and private funds.
Well, thank
So
you.
It's been a big effort.
Don't go anywhere yet. Do we have any questions for Hally?
Laura and Hally, thank you so much for the work you're doing, and I'm going to keep trying to find more time to join you all. I'm really glad you highlighted the seed deficit. There's a large number. I just thought maybe you'd like to repeat how large of a seed deficit there is across the country, because I heard millions of seeds and I heard a 70 million. Is that correct? And
For acres?
For the whole country. I mean, it's like, for people to understand.
Yeah, I think it is over 70 million acres need to be reforested from
it's
fires of the last 2 decades.
And we have no seed. We're that much of a deficit for seeds. So
Yep.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I think there was a question back here.
I just had a question about the relic beaver meadow.
Mm-hmm.
So is there like a max load of sediment that can accumulate before it becomes detrimental to the water flow?
That's a good question. I don't know if we have an exact number on what that would look like. I don't anticipate that would happen in this particular meadow, just due to the size of the watershed.
Okay.
But yeah, I will say, the log structures that we've installed aren't intended to be permanent, and eventually the sediment will move and shift and will go downstream. But the idea is to try to keep it, when we have all these other sediment inputs across the burn area, trying to minimize it. When we're seeing these massive debris flows and inputs of ash and sediment, in as many locations as we can.